Hello! So as mentioned on my last video, I wanted to do one about sleep. So this is actually a very new realization for me that I wanted to share and that I'm definitely still working into, but is so right and is, I think, something really important that gets missed a lot. At least it got missed by me a lot. And I'm definitely not everybody, but I tend to see that there are at least other people that struggle with what I struggle with, so I will share what I'm going through with that. So I have a 3-year-old daughter and resultant bags under my eyes, but that's the whole topic of this video. So, and I'm coming off of last week of terrible sleep, like 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, but I'm going to go into all of this. So I think that there are numerous factors that are happening here. I think that the way your child sleeps and the way you sleep have a lot to do with a lot of different factors that you can actually look at. And I'm not a sleep expert. I'm just someone who has experimented with a lot of this and recently has had a very big realization that I think is actually at the foundation of sleep for me in general all the time. So the way that I am in my life may be the way that you are, maybe it's not. I imagine you might have some similarities here. You wouldn't be watching this video. I am not the Caesar Milan of parenting or of being. I have watched every Caesar Milan video ever made because when I had dogs, I had issues that were very parallel to issues that I have in my life, because that old saying, how we show up on the mat at yoga is how we show up to everything in life. And for me, I tend to be someone who is very sensitive to everything, both physically, emotionally, all of it. I'm someone who tends to analyze everything. I'm someone who has historically been very intellectual and has come to life from an intellectual perspective. Now, the last decade or so, I have been unlearning a lot of that and certainly am more in my body and come from a space of experience and physicality that I didn't before. But that is my kind of MO coping when I'm under stress still, is to think my way out of something, analyze it, come up with a plan and fix it. So not that these things don't have a place, and I think they're actually really vital and important steps to take, but I wanted to share today a big step that I have been missing and that I perceive to be really the foundation of the issues that I have had with sleep. So first of all, before I say that, I want to just kind of overview that there are these other things that we can look at with sleep, right? Light affects us. We need wind down time. We need to look at the lighting that we're using in our homes, and is that contributing blue light, which is keeping our brains awake at night and our children's brains at night? Are we watching screens before a couple of hours before we go to bed? So that's also keeping our brains awake. And all of this is scientifically shown to increase the amount of time that it takes our brains to actually get into a sleep state. So we want to be looking at all those things. Are our rooms really dark? Do we have little lights from even things? I hate this. They put these like night lights on everything for kids, whether it's a clock or a white noise machine. Like all of this stuff has these like lights on them. A good way to deal with that, I found, I need to order some more of this right now, is to use foil tape. You can order it on Amazon and cover those up so it completely blocks those lights at night for your kids. What I do with my daughter is she has a top clock, which I really love, which shows her when it's time to sleep and time to wake up. And then she looks at that clock. If she wakes up in the middle of the night, she knows that clock is not yellow. It's still blue, and we still need to be in our beds. That's one component that's been working really well. I'll put links below for that. But the light is really bright, even when I have it on the lowest setting. So what I do is just turn it away from her as much as possible so that there is some a little bit of illumination in the room, so that if she wakes up and has to go to the bathroom, she has the light to do that. But I try to minimize it as much as possible. And then having the white noise. I have white noise in her room, and I actually use her hatch light in my room. I don't have the light on at all, but I have the white noise going because I live on a street that you wouldn't think would be terribly busy because it's a terminal street, but there's always traffic and it's loud. So that helps a great deal. I also have a little Dyson air purifier in my bedroom that I run that obviously is great for the air quality, and because I live on that street as well, and also provide some white noise as well. So with those two going, and with all the lights dealt with in my room, I get a pretty good sleep. I'll also tell you that I have an EMF blocking tent over my bed, which is really effective. I was trying to send a text this morning, didn't realize, I'm still in the tent. It wasn't even zipped all the way and it wouldn't go. And sure enough, I stuck my hand with the phone out of the tent and 5G online. But EMF exposure can also affect your sleep. So if you're willing to go to all ends of the earth like I was, you can order a tent. I'll actually put a link down below. I really love the tent. And it also feels so wonderful to sleep in this really cozy little environment. So those are just some ideas that I've used as far as the physical environment for sleep. I also take valerian, a natural valerian supplement at night. And just because I am constantly trying to re-regulate my sleep depending on my daughter's sleep patterns. So those are just some things that I do. Also doing a bedtime routine where I'm making sure that I wind down at night. I notice that every time I get a massage in the evening, and I do that once a week, and that is vital to releasing both toxins and energetic components from my physical system, I sleep amazing every time I get a massage. So I'll do that every week. I also have started taking Epsom salt baths at night when I'm able to do that, generally just on the weekends right now, but I want to start integrating that more. And then obviously doing those kinds of things for your child as well. Having a routine where you're doing dinner and then you're doing bath and you're doing teeth and PJs and potty and stories and bed, however you feel to do that. I have played with so much around that, and with on and off success. And I will say that I have had, and my daughter has had, a massive amount of change in her little life, and we have moved many, many times. So we are now in kind of a stable place. And when things start to not work really with her sleep, I can almost always trace it back to how I've been. Because when our routine is disrupted, say we even just go on a trip for a few days, something like that, it has always taken me, like even before I had her, like a week to kind of recalibrate and get back on my routines and back in, okay, this is what we're doing. So I can always trace it back to the interruption of what I was doing and the consistency of what I was doing. And she really needs that consistency to know what's going on, for her body to regulate down for sleep, and then to stay asleep. So those are things for me that I also work on, is just consistency in my routine, because our bodies need that too. And just kind of having that routine always happening, that consistency, that routine, I think is tends to be really important. Okay, so now for the actual main thing that I wanted to talk about today, and this is huge. So what I was noticing was that, yes, my daughter might wake up in the middle of the night, or she might have woken up in the middle of the night several nights in a row, and then my body is just on that schedule. So maybe she doesn't wake up and I wake up that same time. And then she goes right back to sleep. What we're working on now is basically kind of some self-soothing things to get her to go back to sleep on her own without waking me up, because this makes both of our lives, degrades the quality of both of our lives when mom doesn't get sleep too. So, but a huge factor in me not going right back to sleep is that I will start what I call just rabbit holing in my brain. And I know to meditate. I have a long history of self-help and writing self-help books and blogs, and I'm not someone who's unaware of this kind of thing, right? In the middle of the night when you wake up, particularly when you have been sleep deprived for many, many nights, many, many months, many, many years, your defenses start to break down. What I've found is I go to my unhealthy coping mechanisms, which are overanalyzing, all of the mental intellectualizing. And at a certain point in my life, at least, and I'm going to guess that this will happen for everybody, at a certain point in life, all of that stops working, because everything in life tends to bring you into awareness of your dysfunctional patterns so that you can heal them. And a lot of times, instead of healing them, what happens is maybe we will add more addictions, add more medication, add more distractions, try to cover it up more and more. Now, some people's addictions and distractions look terrible and are very obvious, like severe alcoholism. Even minor alcoholism or use of alcohol is kind of applauded in our culture, so maybe that's not a good example. But say like hard drugs, say things like self-harm, just watching TV all the time, or spacing out in whatever way you yourself numb out. For me, those things have been more insidious. It's not that I haven't done them. It's that they looked healthy on a lot of, in a lot of different ways. So they were kind of hard to spot and were invisible to me for a long time as well. So those were things like, it depends on what you call them, right? If I call it intellectualizing, obviously, ooh, bad thing, right? We don't want to be doing that. But if we call it how I was looking at it, which was, I'm really looking at the thoughts, I'm breaking them down, I'm addressing them, and I'm sort of reforming thought systems that are in alignment with what's actually true. And there's for sure value and necessity in doing that in some ways and in some areas. But it also can be used as a numbing agent. And what I was doing was overthinking, overanalyzing. I was using, take out the over. I was thinking, I was analyzing, I was fixing, I was coming up with plans, I was restructuring, I was, okay, let's go. I was looking at, what's the gift here? And what I was doing basically was completely paving over this huge underlayer of pain. And the way I finally woke up to this was, and this has been in stages, but the other night it all fell apart and I completely lost it and thought I was going crazy. And this was after many, many nights of not getting enough sleep, not getting nearly enough sleep, and just not knowing how I was going to cope. My daughter, like I said, wakes up, she goes back to sleep. Sometimes it's midnight, sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 3, and then often I had been awake for the entire rest of the night because my brain is rabbit holing and, trying to fix and all of this stuff that is actually just covering up the reason I'm not going right back to sleep in the first place, which is that there's this child inside of me that is in massive pain when it is, and that this has been paved over and ignored. And I've been in therapy for decades, and it's not that these things haven't helped. It's that I could only get them on the layer of onion skin where I was aware to get them, right? So what's different now is there's an embodiment of and a loss of the ability for these coping mechanisms that worked for a long time to work anymore. So it has become apparent to me that these things were coping mechanisms. They weren't actual healing that was happening, at least in terms of this deep level. So I knew exactly what was going on as soon as it appeared. And I knew, and thank goodness for all the experiences, all of the books, all of the therapists, all of the different alternative treatments that I've done. Thank goodness for all of that, because it all plays in. But if we're using it to mask this underlying discomfort and pain and run away from it, and I think most of the time there's no awareness that we're even doing that. And that only can come up when it comes up. So I'm very grateful that it came up for me finally, and I can see how I haven't been doing the very simple thing that needs to be done. And this is what is the basis for the parenting that allows our children to know how to do this for themselves and to be whole people who are able to function really well and not stay up all night and overanalyze or be people that use drugs or over-exercise or become workaholics or alcoholics or all the aholic things that we do to try to escape our pain. And the very basic thing is so simple, and it's really just to feel the pain. It's just to feel the pain. And I think the biggest story that runs, at least for me, is often blame, and it's most often self-blame, but it can be blame on others or circumstances. And I know intellectually that isn't real. It isn't a thing. It is completely mind created, but when I am in that pain and the coping mechanisms are there, and the MO is to go to those before, like immediately before that awareness can come in, it's really a different world. So, but I got it. I got that, because there have been so many different layers. I'm sure there are more to come, but I have gone through so many layers of awareness and awakening about the inner child, what she needs, having conversations with her. All of this stuff is so important. But I think the very last layer that disappeared, that dissipated, was around trying to say the right thing to that child, trying to say what needed to be said so the child felt better. And I'm going to admit, this is what I do for my daughter. I have done for my daughter. What do I say to her to make her so aware that she is loved no matter what she's feeling? What do I say to her for her to realize that her feelings are 100% okay? This is all fantastic stuff. But if we're missing the piece that we're just present and feeling the feeling, physically feeling the feeling without even labeling it, because that's another layer. Let me label the feeling so that I can integrate. And this is science. If you can label the feeling, your brain can integrate. If you can put language to it, your whole neurological system calms down. So there's a purpose to that. We want to be able to do that too. But underneath that is also this ability to simply be with the pain non-verbally. Think of all of nature. All of nature is basically, does not use language in the way that we use language, does not use words in the way it communicates, absolutely is connected, emits communication and receives. I'm just reading about plants emitting sound that we can't hear, and they communicate with sound and with chemicals in the air. We all communicate, all forms of life communicate, but only human life uses words. My belief is that we're given that gift so that we can speak for everything that doesn't have words, because our species is wreaking death and destruction on itself and our planet. So that is my belief, that we are given this gift of speech to be able to speak for what cannot speak for itself. And the point being to my discussion here that all of nature is non-verbal in the sense of not using words, and that we often skip over that layer. I have always, almost always skipped over that layer for myself, and just being there physically with that pain without any words, without any labeling, just being present as a space of love for what's happening in here. And what I am doing is literally holding my hands over my heart, because that's where I feel the pain. So I woke up last night, middle of the night, pain, stories spinning. But I think what we do is we kind of bypass that we're feeling pain, and we go to the story of why. This is causing this is wrong, this has to be fixed. My mind was doing all of that. And I came back to the pain in my chest, and it's a physical pain. And if you come back to the physical sensations, what am I feeling in my body? And this is where all of that work that maybe you've been doing about meditation, about tuning back into your body, about feeding your body, nourishing it with nature on the inside, so that your body is clear, so that you can be attuned to what your body is telling you, hearing and acting on the signals it's giving you. That's where all of that comes into play. And I do trauma release with a therapist, and it is really about tuning into what I'm feeling, taking off the labels, taking off the interpretations, taking off the mind trying to fix anything, and just continually coming back to my body and experiencing the sensations in my body. And that is the way that they release. So last night I did that. I'm in the brain spinning, and I somehow finally was at a point where I had this visceral remembering of what needed to happen, and hand on chest, feeling the pain. No mental story about it, no talking about it, no labeling, no fixing, no analyzing, just feeling the pain, watching the pain, not trying to parent it or reparent it, just being a space of love in which that sensation could be whatever it was at the time. And this is in the moment. And this is the basis. This is unconditional love. And this is what we have to offer ourselves to truly heal and offer our children. And we certainly can't do it well for our children when we don't do it well for ourselves. And so what happened last night is I sat there with it, and it lasted a long time. But I didn't go into stories about it or any of the other stuff. I just felt the pain, and then I fell asleep. And I slept all night. And despite the other factors in sleep, if we are woken up and can go back to sleep, that is everything. So I just wanted to offer that today, that this is a healing that in a way for me was the catalyst was sleep to really vitally getting what was missing. But it's also the thing that we personally need for healing ourselves and our lives and the world. We need to be able to be with someone or something. We need to be able to be with another species, for instance, a plant. I do what I call rounds with my plants most mornings and connect with them, and I feel their leaves, and I observe what's happening with them, and I feel the soil, and I just connect in with how they're doing, and I know each one personally, and have a relationship with them, and I'm looking at what do they need. And what they need is that. They need because they're in my care and they're entrusted to my care here in my home, they need someone who's with them, who can be with them and really observe what's happening. Be with that first, you know. We need to be able to be with ourselves, be with our children, be with the pain, observe that pain, watch what it does, watch it until it dissipates, because it dissipates when we're able to just be with it. And then we can take the actions that need to be taken. Once I've observed and I've been with my plant or my daughter, then I can, after that pain is observed, after I have been with my daughter, sat with her feelings, been with what she really needs in that moment, then I can take actions. Then we can look at patterns and routines and other ways of healing. But if that being with that pain is overlooked, there can only always be addictions and distractions. And that's important. I think that's the root of all pain. So I'm wishing for you amazing sleep. And more than that, I'm wishing for you presence with yourself in the moment. And I'm wishing that for me, for my daughter, and for my plants, and for every species that's under our care that we have responsibility for. And I'm wishing that for everyone and everything, because that being with is true respect, and it's unconditional love, and it's what will heal everything. All right.